what if the reason it felt so hard to progress inside of your independent music business was not because you weren't trying your best, but society was doing its best to keep you stuck like Chuck in a pickup truck? So today, I'm Dax DePage, and I'm going to be breaking down to you exactly how the music industry and society has been trying to program you to be unsuccessful so that the people at the top don't have any competition. Because really, when it comes down to it, that's the core of the issue. A lot of the misinformation that is put out today is stemming from the single fact that the people at the top want to stay at the top, and they don't want you or me or anybody else to be competition for them. But what if there was a way to break past it? What if there was a way to get past the programming that they've set for us and actually start to have success in our music business? So initially in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down what this system, this cultural hypnotic societal mechanism looks like. And then I'm going to be showing you what to do about it. How do you push through? How do you break the programming of the matrix and actually start to see success inside of your independent music business? So the first thing that we need to understand is that there are two pillars that this oppressive system sits on top of, okay? The first one is the education system. So as some of you may know, our modern public education system in America was essentially created by John D. Rockefeller. Now, what was the purpose of this way of teaching the next generation of people that were living in America? What was the philosophy behind that education model? Well, the philosophy was John D. Rockefeller wanted to have a bunch of people who would work inside of his factories and wanted people to be consumers of the products that the businesses were creating. So the last thing they wanted to teach people was how to think, how to grow rich. They were trying to teach people how do you sign up basically to be a factory worker, an assembly line worker. You'll notice that a lot of the ways that you go through school, I want you to read a book if you can called Weapons of Mass Instruction. Weapons of Mass Instruction. And inside of that book, you're going to see some of the actual tactics that schools use to get people to conform. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Think about two things. One, okay, the founding of our education system has very questionable roots. Very, very, very questionable roots, right? And then on top of that, you have people that are far removed from that creation, right? It's been many, many years since then. It's basically been over a century. So what do you have now? You have a bunch of people that are in a system like the teachers and the administrators. They're in a system that they think is a good system, but really is a terrible system because it's programming unsuccessful habits to the people that are going through it. So what are some of those unsuccessful habits that school is programming you to do? Well, the first thing that is a complete issue with our modern education system from a basic psychological perspective is you are focusing on 6 different subjects in one day, and in that one day that you have and focusing on those 6 subjects, you get an hour for each of them. Nowhere in the adult world are you going to only focus on one thing for an hour and then have to completely drop that and go focus on a completely unrelated different thing for another hour and do that 6 times. That is training you to be constantly distracted and not be able to focus on tasks for long durations of time. That's the first unsuccessful habit that is being programmed into everyone that's been through the education system. Whether you're going through it right now, you're a young one out there going through that education system, or you've been through the education system, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That feeling of just when you feel like you're in the zone or you just finally understand what the heck they were talking about, class is over and you got to move on to a completely different subject, and you're sitting there going, okay, I barely comprehended the last one. I guess I got another subject I got to try to comprehend that isn't even related. And so your brain is constantly in this distracted mode where you're not really absorbing anything, and it only serves a percentage of people that absorb learning that way, which is not a large percentage of people. I think last time there was any sort of studying done, it was like 12 to 20% of people potentially learn in the way that school presents learning, but the rest of people don't learn that way. And so that's another thing, is you're being constantly given information in this lecturing sort of format where people are just talking at you and you're sitting there like, I don't care about this. I don't care about this. And I don't blame you. And no one blames us for going through school and being like, why should I care about this? Because they didn't communicate why we should care about this. And they weren't giving us the habits that were required to be successful in life anyway. It was just memorize a whole bunch of stuff, memorize the right answers. And that's another huge unsuccessful habit that's been programmed into us, is this idea that there has to be one right answer. Any other answer is completely wrong. How many times in life is there only one answer forward? In fact, a lot of times, I'm going to quote an economist named Thomas Sowell. He says there are no solutions, only compromise. And so if you go into the world thinking that there's going to be a one-fit solution to the problems that are out there, you're going to find yourself extremely frustrated as to why your one solutions are not working. Instead of looking at it like, wow, maybe there isn't just one solution. Maybe I need to look at this from a multiple set of angles to see what's the best fit for me, right? We're not trained to think that way going through the modern education system, okay? So I could keep on going, but I want to make this video not 3 hours long. So we're going to kind of cap it on education, but you understand that the biggest issue that is preventing people from developing the type of personality traits to be successful is starting with our education system. You may remember a couple videos ago, I talked about the concept of be, do, have. You cannot have if you're not willing to do, and you won't be able to do unless you're the type of person that will do, right? So you have to become the person who will do what's necessary to have the results you want to have in life. And society is programming you from the be position very, very, very early on, right? They try to put limitations into you. I remember in one of the videos earlier, I was talking about how I was given limiting beliefs by my teachers and my administrators and counselors about my ability to read, but now I have a library of over 270 books that I've read myself, and it's like, what was their misdiagnosis there? Well, they were given a faulty system to judge you and judge me anyway. They're sitting there saying, oh, well, they didn't get an A on this test. That clearly means they're struggling. Instead of looking at the multitude of factors as to why someone may be struggling inside of school. Okay, let's move on to the second pillar, the second leg of this cultural hypnotic, force that is on us all the time. And that is the entertainment industry. Now, that's kind of oxymoronic for an artist because we're in the entertainment industry. And so it actually puts us in a position where we really have to think about why we're musicians and the impact we're actually trying to have on our fan base. Because I want you to think about it. The entertainment industry is a double-edged sword. In one sense, it could be the distractions that keep people from progressing in their life, or it could be the information that opens up their mind so that they can become the type of person to change and take action and grow, right? So it can be this double-edged sword, and if you just let the industry determine for you what you're going to do, it's most likely going to tell you how to make people's life worse in the end. Let's be objective. I understand that not all of music has to be super serious. You can have fun music that's not about anything serious, of course, right? But there is certain music out there that pushes harmful modes of being. I'm not going to go into detail about the songs, but you can look at artists like Cardi B, right? You can look at, just objectively speaking, the type of personality traits her songs embody and encourage as a consequence. You can see that if someone was to adopt that personality, that would actually be a net negative for their life, right? So the entertainment industry has had this influence on people for years. Now, I'm not saying that it has complete control, right? I'm not trying to make the argument that, like, if someone goes out and commits a crime and they watched a bunch of movies, that therefore means if you watch a bunch of movies, you're going to go commit a crime. I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is that the entertainment that we consume has a huge impact on us subconsciously. Whenever you watch any movie, or television show for that matter, there are two stories being told simultaneously. There's the story that's being told to your conscious mind, and then there's the story that's being taught to your unconscious mind. And if you look at most movies, there's this duality that they call this the subtext in certain circles, right? So you have to look at it from this perspective of what is the other underlying message that is being communicated here. And for example, let's think about becoming a business owner, because people have trained us not to think like this, but this is the reality of the situation. If you want to become a professional musician, that means you are going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to be a small business owner, fundamentally speaking. So if that's what you want to pursue, you therefore have to learn about becoming a small business. And you have to think that starting a small business or becoming an entrepreneur is a good thing, right? But when you're a kid, who were the biggest villains in all the movies, especially the superhero movies? Who remembers this? All the villains were the big rich corporations. Even like the funny little like not sitcoms, like slapstick movies like Austin Powers. Dr. Evil is an evil millionaire, evil billionaire, right? So Lex Luthor, evil billionaire. Now I know what some of y'all are thinking. And that, like, this kind of reminds me of some things I've heard from Myron Golden, but it's like people are thinking, well, what about Batman? You know, Batman was super rich. Yeah, but he's also one of the only superheroes that doesn't have any superpowers. Yeah, and you look at, like, well, what about Iron Man? Yeah, Iron Man is super rich too, but if you watch pretty much all the Marvel, like, content about Iron Man, he's kind of a jerk, right? He's kind of this pompous, rich jerk, and he's mean to people all the time. So it's like, anytime that someone is given the trait of wealth in any of like the superhero movies, they're also given negative character traits to counterbalance that. Where in the other circumstance, it's made to believe that the evil person is the big rich corporation, right? Now, I'm not saying that corporations can't be evil. I mean, look at McDonald's and what it does to human health, and just tell me that's not an evil corporation in its essence. But like, I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but what I'm saying is the media that you consume from a very young age is passing on a lot of this subtext to you. You've probably seen, before the time you were 7, millions of people killed by entrepreneurs and business owners in these make-believe stories, right? Now, the conscious mind, the story that's being told to the conscious mind is not, hey, entrepreneurs are evil. That's never the message. The message is always like, you know, if it's like a superhero movie, it's some big morale about, you know, you have to be a hero and you have to live like a hero. With great power comes great responsibility and all this kind of good stuff. But if you look at what happens in the subtext, it's like if I always see an association to something, my brain will by default naturally associate with that kind of thing. So what's a good example of that? Okay, what about the term Xerox? Xerox is not a verb, right? Xerox is the company that makes a photocopier. And so what happened there? Xerox got so associated in the average human brain with the act of photocopying and became the market share dominator of photocopiers. So now when people think of the act of photocopying, they just say, can you Xerox that for me? But Xeroxing is a company, not photocopying. They don't say, hey, can you photocopy that for me? They just say, hey, can you Xerox that for me? What happened? An association was created. And it happened over repetitious amounts of time. Boom, 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 boom. You're constantly given this association to something. You're going to have an inbuilt subconscious bias now to that interpretation. So therefore, if most of the movies and shows you're watching positions entrepreneurs and business owners as evil people, even if they don't explicitly say that, it's like, oh, you're naturally, instinctively led to this conclusion that being that type of person is a bad person to be, okay? Now, what you need to understand is that they're programming that into you so that you don't realize that there are positive traits to entrepreneurship, right? Now, what's another way? I mentioned TV and movies, but that's not the whole problem. Musicians have another really bad problem, unfortunately. I think in our specific area, this is a bigger problem than most other industries, which is video games. Now, before you freak out on me in the comment section that I'm no fun, I do enjoy video games. I was a big avid video game player for a very long time. I remember playing, the Call of Duties and the Halos for hours on end and all that kind of good stuff, right? But here's the problem. Video games are not bad in themselves at all. It's all about how we use them. So for example, I noticed that a lot of artists play video games, which is not a big deal except if I look at how a lot of artists are using video games. And a lot of the artists, now this may be a personal bias, you may have not had the same experience, let me know in the comments if that's true. But most of the people who I know who are avid video game players spend a lot of time there. And when I say a lot of time, I mean multiple hours a day. Now, here's what I'm going to say. There's nothing wrong with working hard all day and then wanting to relax for an hour and play a video game. That's no big deal. But when, as soon as you get home, you immediately disregard everything and go straight to the console, there's an issue there. I know musicians personally who have neglected their personal relationships with their boyfriends, girlfriends, spouse, because they just use this as a way to distract themselves. Now, here's the thing, underneath that lies the problem, which is that the entertainment industry has a huge function, which is that it serves to distract people, anesthetize people from the life that they're living. And I know this is kind of like heavy stuff, but it really is important for you guys to understand is that if you don't feel the pain of where your life is at, it will be harder for you to actually take action to change that. But if you can have a way to constantly distract yourself from that, then it's going to be harder for you to break out of that because you're going to be distracted by, oh, I got this new TV show series I got to keep up with. There's this new movie out that everyone's seen that I haven't seen yet. There's a new video game that's out. There's new DLC on the video game I got to check out. There's all these things that are pulling you into it. And when you invest all that time, what do you get at the very end? I want to tell you guys how I literally went cold turkey on video games. I haven't played a video game like in a console in my own house since 2018, and I'll tell you how I did it. It's very, very simple. I actually asked myself a question. One question. What did I just get from beating this game? I beat Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 2, and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and I think I had also beaten Assassin's Creed Brotherhood 2. I had beaten like 4 of these games in a row sequentially. And then I got to the end of one game and was starting the next one. I think it was Revelations or something. And I asked myself, like, okay, you're starting this new game again. What did you get from beating the last one? And what are you going to get different from beating this one? I was like, I sat there on the snowy castle in the intro of the game, and I was just like, I don't think I want to invest all this time in this anymore, because I just wasted tens of hours on an activity that when I actually accomplished what I was supposed to accomplish from it, my life was in the exact same position. I hadn't grown at all. I was just the same person. And I realized that that was one of the biggest issues with the entertainment industry altogether, is that we watch these series to completion. We watch these movie trilogies and anthologies of Marvel and all this kind of stuff, and you get to the end of it, and you're no closer to creating the life that you want to create than you were when you started. And that's a problem. And that's really fundamentally where the two pillars work together to keep you down. Now, I'm not just going to leave you guys on a negative note. I'm going to show you guys how to hopefully break the code, break out of the matrix, and start to actually get some progress, because here's the reality of the situation. What I told you is that the people at the top are giving this misinformation so that you don't compete with them. Well, now I'm going to give you the knowledge so that you can change your mindset, and you are now going to be competition for them, and you get to be a thorn in the music business's side, or the music industry side, I like to say. So, what is the solution? Well, we need to kind of reprogram how we think about certain things. So the first thing that I should say that hopefully is obvious at this point now is entrepreneurship is actually a net good thing to do. Some people don't believe that because they've been programmed to believe certain other beliefs, like profit is evil and profit is always exploitative. I've heard people say there's no such thing as ethical consumption when it comes down to profit, and all these different things. There's programming that is gone that basically says, yeah, you know the one thing that helps give you security and an ability to give back to society? Yeah, that thing's evil. What? What are we saying? Yeah, that's literally what society tells us. Society tells us that the thing that you need in order to have security for yourself, security for your family, be able to grow your wealth and actually give back to your community. Because guess what? If you make, let's say you make the absolute bare minimum, right? And you have like $10 left over after all expenses to give to charity. Great. That's what you can give. That's cool. But wouldn't it be better if you could give $100 to charity or $1,000 to charity and it wouldn't even matter to you? What's that feeling like? Well, I can tell you personally, it's a great feeling of being able to give what you want to give and it not impact you. As like wow, if I gave for some people, if they gave $1,000 to a cause, that might bankrupt them, right? But if you have profit in your life, if your cup is literally filled up and now it's running over, guess where you can put that run over? Into charities, into causes that you believe in. And now you can actually have an impact on society in a positive way that you can see fit. Like for you, maybe for some of you, it's like, I want to preserve the environment. I know like metal bands like Gojira are very hardcore environmentalist types. Maybe that's your thing, right? Or maybe you want to help out people who are suffering from mental illness like depression, anxiety, PTSD, those kind of things. Maybe you want to help people who are veterans. Maybe you want to help people who are in the armed forces and have come back and are not getting the treatment that they need to get. What if it's, like there's so many different causes that we could give to. But that's the thing is when people think of profit, that's not where they've been trained to immediately start thinking. We start thinking of profit, people start thinking of what kind of car can I buy? How big of a house can I get? These type of things instead of, wow, what could I now give back? Well, actually, I should say give, because you're not giving it back because you didn't take it from anybody. You're just giving it. That's another thing. How we use our language is actually a huge deal. So when it comes down to it, a lot of us have been, fooled into believing that profit is somehow evil, when profit is what allows you to give. Like, for instance, people talk about the necessity of having a job. Well, if a business has no profit, ain't nobody getting paid. I'll tell you that right now. So profit is good because if a business can profit, I can now afford to pay my studio engineer. I can now afford to go pay, let's say I have a business coach. Let's say I have an ad budget for marketing. I can now afford these things. Where if you don't have any profit, you can't grow at all. So keep in mind, if somebody's trying to get you to think that profit is evil, why would they get you to think that? So that you're not competition with them. That's why. So that's one of the beliefs. What's another belief that people kind of have that are holding them back? That selling something or being persuasive is somehow an evil thing. Well, let me be the first one, hopefully, to tell you this, which is that selling is serving. What? Because when I think of selling, I'm speaking as like the average person here, they're like, when I think of selling, I think of like a used car salesman. And I would ask you the question, why is that? Could it possibly be that the only context that you've ever been shown selling is people who are being deceptive and manipulative? Could it possibly be that all the cultural examples that you have in your head, or that you can draw back to, revolve around these negative stereotypical cliches? Now, I know some people have realistic experiences, like they've maybe dealt with a used car salesman who was really pushy and crappy. But as far as like when you go to a restaurant, do you leave the restaurant and go, I can't believe those greedy restaurant owners, they sold me all this food? No one, but they did. They sold you a bunch of food and you enjoyed it and you walked away and you were like, oh, that was a delicious meal. I'm so glad we came out here tonight because we got to enjoy this. Right? When you're selling something that is good for somebody, that's something that they're going to enjoy, something they desire, that's serving somebody. When you're a fitness coach and you've got someone who's overweight and wants to lose weight, you are doing them a moral service by selling them your fitness product so that they can lose weight, have a healthier body, and live longer. That is a net good for them. Just like you as a musician, selling your music makes people's lives better. especially if you're one of the people that follow this channel. I know the type of community that we attract, and I know you guys are the type of people that want to create music that has an impact on people's lives in a positive way. Whether that's just like, I want you to have fun and hang around, or I want you to think deeply about something and feel something. I know you guys are those type of artists, right? We're not going out there just writing about like doing drugs and hurting people. We're not trying to encourage our fans to do those kind of things. Because in that example, you're giving somebody the equivalent of a drug, because music is addictive. Music is kind of like a drug in many different ways, the way it reacts chemically within your brain. And so if you're giving somebody something where you're speaking messages into their subconscious, I think it was Jimi Hendrix one time that said, music is one of those things where someone is at their most vulnerable when listening to you, and you can just speak into their subconscious. And there's a lot of truth to that, where, I mean, I hate to say this because I like this band, but there's a band called Stained, and they have a song that's very depressing. It's called Outside. And there was a person who unfortunately took their own life listening to that song. Now, does that mean if you listen to that song, then you're going to be in that person's position? No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if you're a person who's in a vulnerable enough position, you want your music to be a guiding light and a silver lining, as opposed to a thing that reinforces what they're feeling, which pushes them to a place that will ultimately land them in somewhere they don't want to be. So I know that's kind of a serious thing, but we need to understand is what we're selling. Now, when it comes down to it, we talked in other videos about, what we're literally selling are these products like t-shirts and all these other kind of things. But I mean what you're passing on to your fans. The messages and the things that you're communicating with your fans are extremely important. And if we're selling this idea that, is going to make them a bad person, then yeah, what you're selling is not good. But if the music you have is actually going to make people's quality of life better, then you have a moral obligation to make sure that they listen to your music and become fans of you. Because I can tell you right now, this may sound crazy to some people because of the cultural programming that we have, but my life was made better when I got into a band that had a great positive message, and I sort of got, like, for lack of a better phrase, I got sort of indoctrinated into their community. So I'll give you an example. The band was Nothing More. At first I was resistant to the sound because it had like produced electronic elements, and I was sort of a purist at the time. And I listened to them, and I started listening to the lyrics, and they were so well done, and they were telling great stories that had cool morals that were positive but also emotional and impactful. And I started like, okay, so now I started buying shirts from them. I started buying tickets from them. I started buying VIP experiences. And some people may say, yeah, you're just making that band richer. But I can tell you right now, I was making my quality of life richer by getting closer to that band, knowing more of their music, because they actively try to write music that means something. And I can tell you, the way that I think about the world was directly impacted from this band. And so think about how you can impact people's lives, because I guarantee you that if you have this mode of being within you, it makes you more confident when you go out into the marketplace and do try to sell stuff, because you ultimately understand that by getting people into your community, that is a good thing in their lives. That's a net positive thing. Because people think, oh, you're just selling a t-shirt. Well, guess what? That t-shirt for the fan has memories associated to it. How many people, I should say this more directly, how many shirts do you own that if you put it on, you look at it and it sort of transports you to a memory of when you got that shirt? Even if you ordered it online, you still have a moment in your life, a moment in time that you were in when you ordered the shirt, because you're like, oh, I'm so into this record right now, and they just released this shirt and it's really cool, I want it, right? You have these things that are directly positive impacts on people's lives. So, how do we break through the societal, mechanism that's trying to hypnotize us with all these false beliefs, right? We understand the lies, and then we understand the truth as a consequence. There's no your truth and my truth. There's the truth, right? And so the truth is, entrepreneurship is a good thing, because you are ultimately creating something that makes other people's lives better, right? You're creating something that helps other people become more, it helps them grow to become better versions of themselves. Profit isn't evil, because profit is how you grow and is how you give at higher and higher levels. What's better, giving $10 to the homeless shelter or having enough money to start one? I think having enough money to start one is going to impact people's lives a lot greater, don't you think? And selling is ultimately how we get people to invest in our products or services. And if what we provide is ultimately, the product itself is leading to a net good, and then what we're doing with what we earn is ultimately being a net good on society, then like I said, you have a moral obligation to sell as much as humanly possible to get people into your ecosystem so that they can be influenced positively by your music and have their lives changed as a consequence. So hopefully this video has done a good job at showing you guys how the cultural hypnotic societal mechanism uses education and it uses entertainment as two chains around both of your legs to keep you from moving forward. But how do we break the chains? We understand the lies that have been told to us, and we understand that the actions that we're wanting to take, but we feel like imposter syndrome about, those are the decisions, those are the choices that we need to make that are going to be the biggest impact on that's going to have the most impact on our career path, is deciding it's okay to do this. It's okay to start a small business. It's okay to approach my fans and say, hey, would you like to buy something? Here's some cool reasons why you might want to buy. It's okay to want to sell people. It's okay to want to provide something so valuable in your music and that you have to share it with the world. Those things are okay. People have this whole like, who am I to think this and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, who are you to think this? People need your services. And what's your service? Creating music. That's one of the greatest gigs that you can possibly have, as opposed to like, you're providing good to the world, but it's like a kind of who cares sort of product. I hate to say it that way, but it's sort of a non-essential product. I think music is one of those things that makes humans' lives better. And you're someone who provides that. And so don't feel like what you have isn't valuable, because the music that you create will create a bond with your fans that will allow you to sell other things like t-shirts, mugs, VIP experiences, and things of the like. And so you can utilize your music as marketing for your other products, and you can feel no shame, no guilt in pursuing earning a profit. Because ultimately when you earn a profit, you can give more to the fans. Think about how it works for the fans. They want more music from you. They can't get more music for you if you can't afford to put music out. But if you have enough profit to afford to put music out, you're able to give back to the fans more, right? If you have more profit, you're able to invest in better VIP experiences. If you have more profit, you're able to invest in fan clubs and membership programs. Those are the type of things that ultimately your fans are like, wow, I want more of those things. And by you having profit, I'm able to get more of those things I want. It's a beautiful symbiotic relationship, but a lot of people have been convinced by the education system and the entertainment industry to have warped perceptions around those things. And so hopefully this video has given you a way to break out of those chains and understand that entrepreneurship is good, profit is not evil, and selling is serving when you're selling something that actually enriches people's lives. So if this video gave you any value whatsoever, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, all that YouTube-y stuff, and share this with someone who needs to hear this message as well. And I look forward to seeing you guys on another video inside of Musicians Ignite.